Great. So her suggestion from a few months ago, start off with very beautiful. So the chair is up tonight. So Thomas, vice chair. Williams. Alexander Apel, member.
Michael Cizik, member.
Lindsay Fleck, member.
Awesome. And I guess we'll go up to public comment to start.
And do you have a blurb you have to read, or I'm willing to,
It's not on our.
I've heard it before, so.
Yeah, I think if anyone's familiar, the 3-minute open public comment, or not have to respond to the address. I don't know. Take it away.
All right, thanks. My name is Pam Chapborn. I live a block or two from here. Tonight you have a couple of agenda items that I'm interested in and have spent time on. Waste diversion and the Geneva Village stakeholder session update. Also Transportation Mobility Board. I'm going to tell you that you're not going to hear anything from the system level. You're not going to hear anything presented from the city's impact as a system over time. And that's the only right way to do this. So these projects have been approached as walled territory, and they're given to you as little bits, and us, I mean, me too. And that's invalid. So I just want to make that general point. Let me say, folks, that the financial implications of giving away Geneva Village or selling Geneva Village and this building and taking that away from the city's public assets forever, you guys are the most impacted by that. We talk about generational wealth, and we accumulate that by property. And to give away the city's property for something that's kind of not a sure thing is stupid. And so it shouldn't be done. It affects you terribly. And that should be one of the considerations that is presented to you for your consideration, and it is not. So the UIO thing was just terrible. And it doesn't meet the standards of professional planning. So anyway, I did want to say a couple of things. The waste diversion is great, but what we need to see is some implementation alternatives with pros and cons. I don't want to wait another 5 years for implementation or 10 years because we want to do it all. Can we do trash pickup and then do recycling or composting later? I don't want extra costs, so we do need someone who's familiar with implementation to give us the pros and cons of stepped implementation. But faster is better. My estimate is it would save the non-HOA parts of Littleton $1 million a year in excess payments to waste collection companies. You know, they really are. There's 7 of them, 14 of them driving around the whole city to pick up from every 3rd or 5th or 8th house. It's a real cost. It is stupid. It is horribly inefficient. And we need to get waste management done by a couple of different vendors driving through the city once each week. It'll save us tons of money. It'll save us money, and we deserve that earlier rather than later. And then the Geneva Village study, I just want to mention, for Geneva Village, we should keep Geneva Village. You folks have never heard the assets of a historic overlay preservation plan. And I'm going to say it's lower cost to the city. I think it's more of a sure thing, less risk, with increasing dividends over time if we do a mid-century modern overlay. And so that would be along Littleton Boulevard, including this downtown area, including Geneva Village. Eugene Sternberg, a founding architect in Littleton. I'm going to say Littleton is not about large assets. We are about the middle class. We are about small entrepreneurs. We always have been. That is our brand, and we should play that up. Other cities don't preserve that. We should. And so Geneva Village is part of that. And in densifying downtown, we need to keep this little 4-section Geneva Lake Park Village and our city property. I think these are much bigger returns for you over time. So please ask for those kind of analyses. Things.
Thank you, Pam. All right, I hope everyone had a chance to look at the agenda. comments, adjustments, thoughts on the agenda before we dive in, start knocking stuff off? Fair bit on there, so probably good to get moving through it. Great. So we will start by finalizing the letter of support that we have drafted for the South Metro Waste Diversion Plan. I sent out a draft of this. It's fairly short. Laura put together the bones of it, and then I added some next gen language to it. Wow, way too much. What's happening? There we go. How's that? Yeah, we can read that. Does anybody have any initial places we'd like to start or work through? Ideas in the letter contained. The overall scope of the letter goes introducing it, adding some mention about it as a collaborative study as a whole, and then some of the key points in support of it. These are things that we talked about in our last meeting with Laura in the presentation, as well as points she wanted us to highlight in that, at least as of last meeting, we felt very good about. And then I added a section to the end because I'm not sure how much more we'll be able to comment on this plan as actual pieces become implemented over time, if there's spaces where we want to actually mention support, lack of support, et cetera, for any of the like actual specific ideas. This letter as a whole is meant to be in support of adopting the plan as a whole, but a plan is a plan, not an actual. We have to do all these things, or city council is obligated to do all these things or anything like that. Robert.
So this is great. I'm sorry I missed our meetings and I've put you guys putting it together. The two bits of context. I think our city attorney used to work for the city of Horton or maybe Arvada, and they put through a similar plan and reduced the number of haulers, and everybody was recalled. The whole city council was recalled when they reduced the number for haulers. And so city staff are very reluctant to move forward with this quickly. They want to kind of take a slow approach to kind of rolling this out. And so this is the introducing the plan as the first step, but we haven't agreed to any action steps around kind of what we want to do as a city. And so any kind of guidance around what you think are the priorities to work on it is valuable. And you don't have to put those in now, but this is really helpful just in general for you guys to engage in this question.
What was the reason for the recall? People were worried that.
They were upset that the number of trash hauler options were reduced by the council.
Okay, so it was the people being upset by the number of options, not.
I think so.
Haulers. Okay.
I mean, the results of the study show that it's really inefficient, and by reducing the number of haulers, we can increase efficiency and either provide more services or reduce costs. I think I'm leaning towards provide more services. That it clearly upset people that the city interfered with the free market.
I spent a little bit of time just looking into how that's been implemented in other cities, because a lot of cities have that already. That's not, we're not really breaking a lot of new ground there, but it's not always a universally accepted and easy process. And for understandable reasons, there are some examples too, where like even in Denver, some people really complain about the trash service and don't love it, but overall, and I think it has a lot of upsides. So yeah, does it help if I pull up the plan to look at some of the parts? See if I can. No. I mean, if there's not a lot, if we don't want to add a ton of specific nuance about specific parts and kind of table some of that to go down the road, I'm happy to clean up the language on the the letter itself or any, kind of small changes we want to make and add that as support, but I want to make sure there's room for people to add parts. So,
Maybe in addition to the emissions reduction is also just reduction on wear and tear of the public utility of the road itself. I think those, in my mind, go pretty hand in hand, and in a way, if we're having to repave the roads more often, that's more emissions even there. So I think that they're kind of tied. So I would maybe add that as
that's
well.
something, would that be in this bullet point here that
I think so.
That's a good point.
Yeah. Maybe that's your point. That again brought into.
Repaving or resealing is expensive.
Yeah, I forget,
I also think, is there anything in place, because like the point of the free market, right, is that it checks itself. Competition, keep prices low, because if one sets an outrageous price point, another one can compete and bring it back down. So is there anything in place if we do switch to the using one or two haulers to stop them from upping the price each year when they have this commitment, like making sure residents in the future are protected and there is a dynamic enough situation where if we aren't receiving the services the best way possible and for the right price,
You know, the way,
we can.
one way it would happen is the city would actually put out an RFP of haulers to be the provider. And so they would be, it's not that the competition would go away, it's that the point of the competition would change. Where now the point of the competition is at each person's house. Here, the point of the competition would be in every 5-year re-up of the contract for haulers in the city. So it's not that the market goes away, it's just that the government plays a different role, and it's kind of facilitating competition.
So basically you'd put it out for bid, and then every trash collection company or whoever decides to participate goes, we'll do it for X number of dollars with this kind of service. And then they do it at that rate with that kind of service for the duration of the contract. Say their service gets really, really bad, that's actual contractual like failure and it's a whole legal thing. And then if they go at the end of the 5 years, they're like, actually, we want it to be 30% more expensive. Another trash hauler company just goes, we can do it for the same price you had it before, and then they lose the contract. So
yeah, there's, I think one of the points that people do bring up a lot, I'm in an HOA, so I don't really get this, but if I put it like, a lot of people are like, you can't really call your hauler and have a ton of leverage right now, anyway. Like you could change haulers, but it's like that, they're not that incentivized to provide like the best customer service, but when like the contract with the city is on the line, it's a little bit of like.
That's true. That's true, but as a realtor, I do know that people will switch companies based on like just the response they get on the phone or one phone conversation. So I do think also just having in place where the city is actually getting that feedback in an efficient manner. It just gets, whenever something goes through the city, right, like it gets complicated and diluted and slow. So making sure those processes are there.
Yeah, I think that's maybe something that I was leaning into as I was looking over some of the options in the plan. Is one of the things that was jumping out to me is there are some things in here that are like easy wins. They're just kind of, I don't know, again, if we've been, it depends on the implementation, how some of this stuff is done, how expensive they are, how impactful and stuff there, but they're just kind of wins. Like adding composting just gives people the ability to access it. It's kind of just an addition of services, and it could have a very meaningful divergent impacts. Requiring hauler licensing, so at least we're getting like better data and requiring like tonnage reports so that we can at least better monitor these things in the future. That's a little hard for haulers, but like doesn't feel like a significant barrier, and that gives a lot of just wins. And then there are some of the things that are a little like things that should probably be approached with some level of caution. And I think a single hauler is one of those things. I think there are obviously merits to it, but like it could be done wrong. It could be done poorly. It could be done in a way that like upsets people. Construction and demolition ordinance, making sure that that doesn't turn into a barrier to housing being able to and things being able to be like renovated and done. That's very important. There is a way to do it right. Not an expert on that, but like kind of separating some of these actions into the areas that are things that it probably is good to take a long, like not long in terms of slow, but just a careful and like unintended consequences aware look at. Feels really important, where other things, it's like, yeah, you know, I don't want to say do it in a rush, but of like implement compost. And then where it goes wrong, keep it, like build an iterative model on some of those things. Building an iterative model on single waste hauling could be a little dicier. Getting that right in a way feels a little more impactful there. I don't know how that feels to everybody.
I actually agreed with it. I was gonna say like thinking about implementation and instead of trying to like pull the ocean all at once, but just like do the quick wins, low hanging fruit. And I think for me personally, like just like licensure is probably a very simple, but it's also one of those like competition ones. Like if frankly, like if a hauler's like, I'm not willing to do the step necessary to do this, it's also like, would you be kind of collecting within the city? And then also, I mean, I just had a conversation with one of my teammates today who's in Broomfield, who kind of went through like the whole like transition period, and some of that's like the attesting of how he had to like call multiple people and had all these issues, and there were people like there's just trucks on the street like almost every other day going to different houses, and like how things just kind of like transition. So one point probably we could hit is I guess like still emphasizing the urgency of it, but then also just saying like, to your point, this isn't something that's like novel or new. This is something that's like groundbreaking. It's something that many cities across the US and even some in like the broader Denver metro have tackled. Like it's more of like getting in line and kind of getting to that same playing field as they're in.
I like that form of getting in line too, just because it's like, yeah, I get it. When I acknowledge Pam's point on this, like this stuff has real impacts, and like the sooner the better from an environmental standpoint, obviously. So it's not that I want to like move slow, it's the recognition that it probably will be a slow and tenuous process, which means we should probably get that going like ASAP. So adoption of a plan, and actually like emphasizing some of those pieces. I like that in this plan, single hauler is, you know, relatively like prioritized. And I also like that these actions in this plan aren't necessarily like linear in nature. They can be like, a lot of these things can be run in parallel. Okay, how do we want to add some of that? Let me first go back. Michael, does this feel like reasonable language I've added in just to add the stuff about the infrastructure, street wear and tear?
Seems great.
I think that's a great point though. That's costs over time. That adds up. You know, 1 year doesn't feel like a ton. 10 years, 40 years, that's a lot of money we're spending on having extra trash trucks on the streets. I guess before we get into that kind of flexible end section, which I think we'll start on that single hauler point, some of those pieces. Any of these other points that we want to wordsmith, or do we generally like some of these things? Again, Laura provided some good starting point language, and I added a next gen flair to it. So a lot of it is my words. And so if there's anything you guys want to modify, change, disagree with, then please, of course, let me know. I guess, yeah, come on, that's next gen. We're thinking about this. These are our partner cities we're working with. That's important. Okay, well, let's focus on the fun part then. So we jump down here. And obviously that whole bullet point is just drafting and be deleted. What do we want to call out specifically on that single waste hauler plan? I'm not the best impromptu writer, so I'd love a little help here, but we're also just gonna bumble through it, so.
Really good, but my wording is also seeming very corporate, so.
We're fine with corporate, it's a formal board. Great.
There's something to the corporate newspeak
I mean, I guess more of that phrasing may not. Yes, like that example was like for the single hauler system, but I think it'd be more of like in a generality of. Kind of like support for progression of the plan. It's like, it's a foundation, like it's a start. It's, although like it's definitely up to opinion of like how aggressive or not the plan should be, like. At the end of the day, it's not necessarily saying that we're doing something that's going to, I guess, how do I phrase this in a much better way? Essentially, the gist is that we're doing things that align us with like other cities and other, like, this isn't like a new challenge, but we have a lot of like partners, just other cities within like the broader Denver metro that can help us through this transition, but also have seen like the fruits of some of like that hard work and labor that they've put through. So it's more of, yes, there are lots more things to kind of dig into, lots more things that we need to go and assess. However, by leveraging some of like the existing knowledge that we share from just people who actually live in the same geographical area as us, like, we should go on this journey, not doing this alone, but knowing that we have some support, some other like case studies to look at.
Alright, let me take a stab at this.
Getting it right off the cuff and also right after a work day, so.
That is, yes,
Trying.
it is Thursday at 7, that is.
It's easier if you just like nix transition and you go like support alignment with neighboring communities for like opportunities or whatever.
I was only pulling that because that's the direct wording of the plan.
Oh.
But, so just to call out that we support that individual piece,
That's a good idea, because they already wrote it down.
we call this a component.
But yeah, like if we're gonna continue with the single hauler, I would just more focus on the fact that there are other cities who have went through similar transition periods as this will entail, and again, it's more of a kind of getting us to an equal footing, but also again being able to like learn and leverage this experience, make it a better transition for citizens.
Say, to make it nice to citizens. Let's just leave it vague at that.
You're anticipating going line by line and adding a little bit more context to each of those.
No, these were some of the ideas. I don't think we have to call out specific things here. I think anywhere we want to add, if we just want to say, hey, we support hauler permitting, hey, we support compost yard food scraps, I think that's generally provided in the plan. I think that the addition of this segment was like, the letter as a whole is saying, hey, council should adopt this plan, but you know, depending on what else we take on this year, in future years, we may not have like a dedicated nice chance to come back and circle back to saying, what do we actually think about single hauler, whatever. So if there's anything we really want to add the nuance to here, just so it is present, existing, and council's aware of it. That's what I think.
It's kind of like added emphasis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, right, and it's totally, again, we could come back to revisit this plan in a year or 2 years, depending on how location stuff is going, or as specific actions get taken, and add more kind of detailed recommendations at that time. All right, I like that. Any other? Yeah, any of these other key points, really the only other one that jumped out to me, I think Andrea mentioned it in the study session, because the council heard about this a few weeks ago on that, was like the construction and demolition piece being another one that love the idea in theory, But it's one of those that does have a very obvious overlap with like housing, kind of economic development, other stuff like that, and if done poorly, could be a barrier. I don't know enough about it. There's just there's part of me that wants to be the little, oh, watch out for unintended consequences.
I missed the last meeting, so could you explain a little bit how the construction and demolition falls under?
Yeah. So there's,
connected.
let's see if I can find it.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so requires contractors to sort, recycle recoverable materials. Yeah, from demo. So again, depending, that's vague. This is not, again, plan's not committing us to anything. It's essentially saying it's something that city should probably look at implementing. I agree. I feel like every time I've done any renovation in my house, it's far and away when I produce the most waste. So it does feel high impact. But adding a financial burden adding a potentially further financial burden or barrier to other things, if implemented like incorrectly, would be one of those things that would be hard to deal with.
That second paragraph seems pretty solid.
Yeah, exempting smaller projects, right? There, again, I don't want to stoke fear about this. That's definitely not my intention. Cause I think it overall is a fantastic idea. It's making sure that it gets implemented in a way that people feel like it's a fantastic idea rather than.
I like the idea truly because I work on a lot of these types of projects. But I do think knowing the people who are working on these projects and thinking of how the demolition is actually happening, it will be so hard to get people to follow these guidelines. And oftentimes the person who would be doing the sorting isn't the owner of the home. And so there's like this past responsibility that can get really, I think it would be really, really tricky.
I did look into this a little bit, the deposit system, and seen some other places that do that, because that helps essentially shift again that incentive onto whoever is the one actually like doing the project and applying for those things.
And personally, I think there's still value in calling it out, even if, like to your point, you're like, it's tricky, it needs to be something that's implemented and done well, like. I still think that's valid in saying like, hey, like, this is something that's of interest to us for X, Y, Z reasons, but to your point, like. We see the potential, we also see potential of it falling to the wayside if it's not done correctly, like, this is something that might like need that extra like TLC to make sure it's done right.
Yeah, I'd love, something I'm leaning into on that too, is like, I'd love for that to be an area where like broad stakeholder support is trying to like, cannot find words today, how am I writing things, is considered, gathered, right? Get some contractors, get some opinions on these things, get some homeowners projects, get some larger scale contractors, and like really talk through what implementation makes the most sense on this. I don't want this to just be driven from a resident side of like, yeah, less waste, it's awesome, and then all of a sudden like contractors hate working here.
Well, and I do think it's just like, we're talking about affordable housing and streamlining the process for people who are coming in, doing work on their homes, or, like duplexes in certain areas, whatever it might be. And this contradicts that push of.
I think if done at a broad, high level, but I think that's where like the implementation, if done in a nuanced way, like could probably make that available. Like that's where I agree. Like that's my fear,
Yeah.
is that all of a sudden you're right, I'm trying to remodel a bathroom, add an ADU on whatever it might be, and all of a sudden now that's like prohibitively difficult because of an extra permit step that is.
Well, and the time it takes to get that check from the city and stuff like that. I mean, the stories I hear about just like permit work and getting the meeting set up, like, I think like I said, I love the idea and I think it'd be lovely, but like being realistic about what the city is actually gonna be capable of doing and like the manpower it'll take on not only the person who's doing the project, but the person who's coming and checking that the recycling is actually done right. And if it's not, pulling it out and then getting the deposit back. I mean, I have a small LLC in Colorado. Denver's been charging me twice for the same company and I can't get my penalty charges back. So if you have that going on, so like, I just think coming at it with like the reality of like the response time and how many people actually is going to take. I love the idea, but like realistically, I don't know if this will take so much time and attention to do right. Is that where the focus should be?
It's a pretty big chunk of material. Like it's outside of compost, I think it's one of those that it's like, when we're thinking waste diversion specifically, it's a lot.
If anything, maybe like incentivize people to do it, give like a tax break or like I don't know, a break somewhere else where if like they prove that they do it, then they get a break.
I think I'm in agreement with a lot of what's the pragmatic concern of how this is executed. I think though the scale is still larger for like weekly regular trash on a citywide level rather than renovation or demolition. Knowing that we are not the ultimate decision makers on this matter and that we're just making recommendations, I feel like, especially like in an election year, I realize this will probably not be implemented until after the election, whatever ends up happening. But like speed and emphasizing that like whatever ends up happening with all of this, will it end up benefiting environmental conditions? It will result hopefully in better service to end customers. I think that I think all of this discussion is wonderful. I just don't want us to get lost in the weeds of things that matter, but like, I think that like, as we're thinking about what we want to present to the council, I think like, I want us to be as like clear as possible and like, straight to the point of like what we think should happen, knowing that we're also not a part of the implementation. I love talking about process. I'm sure we could come up with a great process as a team here, but I know that we are also not the people who will be doing that.
How about we make that really explicit and also set ourselves up for maybe a little future easier work of, we really like this idea as a concept, but we understand it could be tricky and we would love to consult on this point as implementation steps are actually starting to get developed in future years. Cause yeah, we're not gonna get all right now, but as staff, right, checkpoint on addressing some of these concerns.
I'm really interested as a board in being involved in that. I mean, I'm interested in a lot of the things that the city is involved in, but like, I think the reality of like some of these discussions specifically, I mean, how we handle trash is like a way that we will all live amongst.
Yeah, I don't think there's an issue, Robert, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's an issue explicitly saying like, yeah, this is a topic we would love to have some more insight or oversight on, commentary on. Solidifies.
Yeah, no, you could.
If we were to-
you could say that.
If we were to do a phased implementation plan, I think this would be an excellent candidate for something later in the cycle. Just because it's mostly bureaucratic, so the time between deciding on something and implementing it's pretty small. And then it gives you some, you get the easy stuff out of the way first.
I also think starting with incentives instead of punishments gives you an idea of who's gonna be willing to put in what amount of work for what kind of reward. And it gives you an idea on how to move forward, like, it's like a stepping stone for these things. That people might be more open to. And it's in line with more affordable housing, all of it as well.
word here, board would appreciate some passive aggressive. We'd like to be included. Yeah, like,
Say like we have thoughts that would be of value add to future conversation. Switch my brain off. One other one
Yeah.
that I am actually really interested in is like multifamily recycling compost access. My complex does do a really great job at like recycling. We have literally like equal bins for like recycling versus trash, but I know a lot of complexes, especially like multifamily, don't, or it's like a little different, and also like to your point of composting, I looked into doing composting and I was like, this is involved.
Yeah.
And I think there's like value in like, yeah, just like supporting, like, I don't know, I just love how like my complex does it, where I can literally just go take my trash, but I also could just like take my recycling at the exact same time. And I know that's also not a reality for a lot of people. Than that. I don't know, even my employer, like we have composting and everything all together, whereas my own employer didn't, like we didn't even recycle. So it's just like a very like shift, and I think there's like some value out there, especially with the like increase in multifamily housing.
Yep.
As I look at construction across the street from me, so.
I think I really like the topic that came up last time too around this, which I'd never thought of before of like, this is a bit of a equity issue as well of like, you don't have the choice to subscribe to trash service when you're in a multifamily unit, stuff like that, and having that choice kind of deprived from you being able to recycle if you really want to, and not being able to do so is pretty unfortunate feeling, so. Yeah, you call that out, because it also, it doesn't seem difficult, especially as mentioned in this plan here, it's an ordinance requiring that for future builds, for future things, it doesn't even get into, retroactively fitting some of those spaces, so that feels really low stakes, and I haven't seen or heard anything that would make this seem like this is an actual barrier to like building, well, like you have the space for it, it's a parking spot basically, so.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, I'm happy to call that one out. Anybody have any other thoughts on that one?
Seems reasonable.
I think adding. Okay.
Sorry, you can tell I'm a little passionate about some of these.
It's great. Passions, where it comes from. Summarize that for me. Sarah. About it.
Really just fully supported in it, just like providing access for those living multifamily housing buildings. It's like they have the ability to recycle. I know that was more focused on like recycling, actually, that's maybe that composting a little bit too, but I know that's probably not in the plan, so.
Also, I'm pretty happy with that. I like that we're calling out some specific things here. These are some of the ones that I think are high up in there. Is there anything else in the plan? Let me scroll back up to that high table just so we can. Is there anything else in that plan? Anything else we wanted to comment on? I mean, generally, I think, again, we've already expressed that we support the plan overall, so I think that covers any of the areas we're not specifically calling out. But is there anything else we wanted to call out on any of these points, or does that feel good? I feel like 3 of those points is good. I think if we added line by line comments on all of these, that's probably a bit, but I'm happy to if we're passionate about it. All right. Michael.
I was about to say I'm satisfied.
Well, it's a comment, I'll take it. Amazing. Read that. I think that letter is basically ready to go, but I will take a brief look back over it and send it to you all just for a final overview. And I guess that gets into we want to ship this off. Robert, do you have any guidance on what's been most impactful historically? What kind of precedent is for this stuff?
I think I mean, I would send it as an email to the council and to, city manager and your liaison. And then if you want me to, I can read some highlights during my comment at the meeting. I would do a summary just because I want to go home eventually. My colleagues do too. And they've expressed that they're sometimes fatigued by my sound of my voice, which I can't believe, but, yeah, so those would be the two things. And, I think, where did you say you want to stay involved? I guess,
The construction and demolition recycling ordinance.
well, I guess I apologize, I was maybe, but somewhere in there, just say we would like to maintain our involvement with this as it moves forward.
Yeah.
Because if that's what you believe, that we want to stay engaged, we think this is important, so.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Does anybody want to take charge on sending that off? I'm happy to, but I want to get all opportunities to be the one sending things. All right. All right. All right. Stop sharing my screen. I'm gonna pass that to you.
Okay.
I will get you the finalized email, the draft, and make sure you have all the emails and everything too, so shouldn't be hard or anything for you. That's great.
Thank you for being scribe.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. You're much better.
Seriously, all the time you put into it.
Okay. Let's hop to our next agenda item. So I know this has been a few months ago, but that ULI Geneva Village meeting
Right, so,
came from that. What's happened there?
I mean, I think that's on the upcoming agenda for us.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I can, give me 2 seconds, I apologize.
The last email I got from them was basically like, this is going to be a long term.
What were your
Going
impressions on that stakeholder? That was a while, that was like May, wasn't it, April? Is it that,
On,
what was that? It was the ULI, Urban Land Institute.
So
that's what I was just talking about. That's like what sorry, go ahead.
sorry, and I interrupted you. What were you saying?
So basically everyone went and gave different opinions in groups of 2 to 3 on, and so, like I was in there with a restaurant owner of the, what's it called, 49th? It's right off of Prince.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was just us 2 in the room, and Khaki was in with another lady or 2 other ladies, a lady and a developer. So like everyone is a really diverse group of people coming at it from different angles, talking about just what they would like to see in that area. And there wasn't a lot of feedback. It was more just us giving our opinions. And the most feedback I got was that this is gonna be a long, ongoing process.
Yeah, I think it is gonna be a long ongoing process. So I think they gave us their kind of, quick end of the report, end of the, their visit report. And then they're gonna give us it looks like they're gonna give us a kind of a full report or a final report on August 26th at a study session. So that'll be where they, where we actually have the piece of paper or pieces of paper and their recommendations. So it may make sense to wait for that before you guys weigh in. And I think it's gonna be a ongoing iterative process as we try to figure out. But review. How to make that work.
Is that, I mean. It's kind of next topic, further on topic, the agenda, like, I mean, this waste diversion letter was one quarterly goal. Love it, I think that's impactful, I learned a lot. We're kind of, you know, open to what we take on for this quarter at this point. You know, housing in general was a topic that was of interest. Does this feel like potentially an area we want to dedicate time to? Is there like something productive to be had there? I think the other competing priorities aren't anything else anybody's thought of, but I know what we've had down for a minute is something related to economic development, either with Project Downtown or sub-area plan or both. And I'm drawing a blank there. Possible outcome, so. Yeah, I don't know, to dialogue real fast, if that seems like an interesting area to pursue.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, that's a sizable chunk of Littleton right there we're talking about. I mean, just moving the city council building alone is a huge effort. And then study sessions on the 26th. That should line up pretty well with our, like, our next meeting. So give people plenty of time to go over all the materials from that, and then we could talk about it, discuss further action basically at the next meeting.
I also think that the Geneva Village, it connects, because a big thought on that is turning it to affordable housing. So that connects to the housing and then also to like downtown total project. So kind of going back to whether we split all these things up or take a more holistic approach to how they all interact with each other. I think it does make sense, to Pam's point earlier, is like which viewpoint we want to take, we want to look at it as a system. And I personally think that's the way.
Yeah, I agree. I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to think of all of that action stuff not having an impact on things like downtown and stuff as well. So I agree. I think we're gonna end up kind of bringing in some of those views either way, and so potentially lining up. That could be good. We'll talk about that as well as have somebody talk about Project Downtown and stuff and where that's at, get updates there. And again, even if it's early on in that process, even if we're making finalized concrete decisions, things similar to what we just did in that waste diversion letter, if we draft up of saying, hey, we know there are some ideas around this stuff, and if that starts getting closer to implementation, we really want to be able to dialogue about it, like even getting our foot in the door, that does feel meaningful, because I don't know, it's probably gonna be one of the major developments and overhauls in the city that.
Well, and just
Sure.
some of the things that did come up, getting more specific with, I was meeting, the ULI. Is that right? ULA.
Land Institute.
Yeah. I always go back and forth between whether it's institute or association.
That's fair.
But it was like affordable housing, historic preservation, green space, like kind of total walkability and use, like the dynamics of downtown Littleton. Hotel came up from multiple people, the need for a short-term place for people to stay. Cause Littleton doesn't have anything like that, and could be a big source of income for the city that we're exporting to Centennial and Inglewood right now. I'm trying to think what else. Parking, that was a big concern, depending on how things get built out, whether it's affordable housing or something else. So those are just like some of the topics that I know a lot of the stakeholders were thinking about that I just talked to in those. That's a little background.
I think what I like about it is an idea is, even if, again, it ends up being not something we have the most concrete stuff on to this point, it has roots in a lot of stuff, and that I think that can help guide us even as like, yeah, I think there's an interesting stuff to pull on there, and I think, right, we are, due for presentations on economic development stuff anyway, and kind of tying the focus of those presentations and taking a look at Project Downtown with a joint lens at Geneva Village, looking at affordable housing with like kind of a micro focus. Learning about it in general with like a micro focus on and stuff there, that just feels like it helps kind of narrow scope while still giving us kind of broader exposure to these important topics around the city. So we're getting slightly out of order on the agenda, but it's relevant on that front, which is obviously, I think watching the study session, since those are available, is a productive thing to do before our next meeting if we want to set agenda time to talk about it. Are there any other sources of presentations and kind of information on that we want to think about lining up for September that would be helpful for kind of getting that discussion going, getting our minds oriented in the right space? Project Downtown be potentially the right, and happy for input from you guys on this as well. If there's any other key initiatives or things you think would be kind of nicely jointly tied to that.
Well, the other big thing that's going on is the Littleton Boulevard overlay project. And that's kind of just getting kicked off. And so, but I think it's related as you think about trying to, if you figure you got the gateway, you got the downtown, and then you have the Littleton Boulevard. So I don't think the Littleton Boulevard project is ripe for your engagement, but I would like you to consider it in the future.
Keep tabs on it, for sure. Should we try to do Project Downtown for September? I think that's a nice, it's just starting point, buys us more time for discussion while we're still hearing new stuff. Worst case scenario, we just discuss what comes up and what's get presented in the study session and start off that way too. We don't line that up in time, so. That seems pretty reasonable.
I mean, the big decision on Project Downtown is, I think I've told you this, does the want to go for debt to pay for that? And when we go for debt, we'll have to specify kind of the key things that we do. And so what are the things that we prioritize to do? Because, I think we're talking about $20 to $30 million of debt for, a budget of things that's probably, 50, 60 million. So we have to kind of pick what we're going to do.
Yeah, I think that makes the scope on that really nice for us if like there's trying to build a plan ourselves or anything like that. It's weighing in on a plan that's already there of, from our perspective, what feels highest priority and resources. So I also think that's one that I've just personally been interested in too.
I guess like one call out I have, and this might just depend on the timeline. I know we're like really focused on having like quarterly goals, but also seeing like this is, I think like a component of for a quarter. Okay, I think as a system, maybe like not saying like, oh, Q4 of this year, like Q1 of next year, like really just giving some time to like fully like bake out the thoughts and bake out recommendations. I guess I just want to be cautious of like not just like trying to rush to get something in just to hit like a relatively arbitrary deadline, but making sure like we're really like being comprehensive, especially since it's gonna touch like lots of different areas.
I think that's very right. Like thinking of scoping out even the rest of the year, if we did in Geneva Village, again, we're not committing to this tonight, of course, can keep flexing, but if we were to do something like a Geneva Village focus and a Project Downtown focus and the overlap between those, it would still probably be nice to set like a check-in point for us to produce some sort of insight or something, but like if we kind of dual work on both of those for a little bit longer, then I think that still seems valuable. I think that's a good tentative move. Awesome. Well, thank you for that update and thanks again for being able to grab Mackenzie. It's cool to be involved and have the foot in the door and stuff like that at least. Okay. Agenda go. Transportation Mobility Board update. So I was at that meeting. That was nice to be able to stop in a few weeks ago and get some possible like board introduction. They are very excited, it seems like right now, trying to like source broader input with Safer Streets initiatives, as well as some of the transportation master plan updates and work they're trying to provide on that. So they were really excited to have me there and are very excited about any form of collaboration. whether that just be kind of passing ideas back and forth through the board, discussing, providing ongoing feedback as we take on semi-relate to them, right? There are gonna be aspects of Geneva Village project downtown that are transportation related, so there's definitely overlapping stuff there. And yeah, specifically just leaning into the next gen focus on like they're really interested in kind of longer term impacts and focus and initiative and what our thoughts are on some of those things. They sent out they gave me their agenda for like the next few months. I'm not gonna try to read it all. I will send it out. One of the things they specifically called out is that they're having the superintendent from public schools coming in their November meeting to talk about. They thought if anybody on our board is interested in attending that one. Schools connection. Those are younger people. They're supposed to be the younger voices, people in the city. That could be an interesting place to get some input on that. I think transportation related to students at schools is of high importance. The other thing I'll send out is they have a survey going on that's super brief, related to the transportation master plan. Things that ask if you're, familiar with components, any areas of the plan that you'd like updated, things of that nature. So I think that's great if we could all add our voices to add surveys there, as well as, of course, distributing that out to anybody else who provide additional perspective. So I'll include that in my email out to you all, since I just got that the other day. And that conveniently segues me nicely into my next point, which is thinking about some of these groups, whether they are other boards or other groups around Littleton, such as school systems, things of that nature. Talking to Ricky a bit about how we've had with them last week to talk through some of the agenda items and stuff, how I think we're, at least at the moment, doing a really good job of kind of really getting into the topical issues that we're supposed to be getting into, but the other kind of second purpose of that board is kind of information exchange and passing exchange. I know we talked about last year, not necessarily the board struggled with kind of that community engagement side of stuff, and it wasn't the most productive avenue. One of the things that I've been thinking about, especially as I was at that transportation board and things, is I think value our board could have would be kind of building a little bit more of a distributed information network. I'm not trying to build a mailing list or put on large group events. I don't think somebody's really excited about that. It's not in my skill set. It's not expertise, but there are a lot of these other kind of groups and voices around Littleton that could be helpful places for us to source broader insight from. That I think would take a ton of coaxing to make some of that happen. I've been trying to touch base with somebody from the Littleton Young Professionals group because I met him at something, and he said he would be interested in talking at some point or sharing ideas with section. We have a wrap-up community college just down the street. We have a number of different high schools and things like that. I just wanted to kind of float the idea of like how we feel about trying to have a kind of proactive communication network across Littleton. I think right now we are dialoguing about interesting ideas between the 5 to 7 of us. What would sourcing broader impact make kind of what we're doing as a board more impactful? And I guess my vision for this would be like each of us having 1 or 2 other kind of groups that we act as little liaisons to. So just keep tabs on, and also for, I think we would probably get more input from council. Robert, I'd love your perspective on this too, if we had dedicated value, which was like, oh, hey, yeah, you want to do something transport related. We have established contact with student council at ACC and could definitely send out a quick email feeler and just source some perspective from them. And we could send that out to some of these other groups that we have established connection with and compile that back together and provide kind of a broader community check-in feel. So what are your thoughts on that? That was a ramble.
I think it's a fantastic idea because it's engaging with other people within our youthful demographic. I think it would also be just further encouragement for us to continue to be engaged away from just these meetings too. And be able to bring back whatever we're seeing in the world amongst those groups, those perspectives to this space as well.
How do you think we would go, like, I mean, there's some amount of, how do you find those groups? And then, once you do find a group, do we just like pick somebody and they go to all their meetings? Do we establish like a professional contact on like a, hey, we were really interested in what you're doing here at insert group name here. We're at the Next Gen board would like to talk with you about what you're doing, sort of thing. I guess what would be the most effective way of going about doing that?
Yeah, I don't know, most effective. That's a great question.
I guess like following up on that, is the intent that it would be something that's central to like, we as a group determine which other groups are gonna be engaged in, or is it something just based off of like personal interest, profession, engagements, that we then do kind of like on our own and then report back here, so kind of like a hub spoke type of thing?
I mean, I think a mix of both. I think that's a little bit of like, yeah, play to strengths. If there's groups you already know, if there's groups you're interested in, if there's groups that are exciting or easy for any of us, particularly like access, then that just makes sense. Otherwise, it can also be not a, one-time goal of like, go and establish this, but this can be a little bit more of a focus that we try to take on kind of as a background context as we do some of these other things. So we can, as we learn about Project Downtown, we can think about what groups around Littleton could we reach out to? What people could we try to talk to that might have insightful voices to that, and use that as a way to try to get a little bit of a, hey, because I've met a few people over the past few months that were like, Next Gen, I don't even know what that is. What is Next Gen board? And then they hear about it and they're like, okay, like again, this guy that works in Young Professionals, he's like, this is great. I'd love to like tell my group about this, just so that if people have ideas, they know that there's like
Place for
a
that?
board for them to kind of funnel that to. And I was like, that would be great. So I don't see it as a, oh, we go to every meeting, you're now, quasi on. Again, the ACC Student Council is one of the ideas I had of like, probably could make sense for us to have a little bit of a ability to dialogue back and forth, that you're not going to all their meetings or doing that stuff, but you have the context set up, you maybe give a one-time spiel, get the gist going, so that, when we want to reach out about, hey, we'd love to source inputs on this, it's not just like totally out of the blue. And yeah, I think again, it can be a slow build, it can be a background thing. It'd just be a good check-in point for us to do on every new topic we talk about, of like, hey, is there any group we want to try to reach out to establish contact on this? As I've also learned from attempted experience of reaching out to that one group that does like voting engagement across Colorado and see if they had ideas. We're also gonna not get replies from people and it's not always gonna work out, but I think the thought of trying to build some of that network, and really it's less about even like, for me, I think it's about enabling people to like recognize that there are other avenues for them to have a voice that isn't just emailing city or council, which is pretty impersonal and hard to feel like you're gonna take it seriously, or like finding the time to go to city council meeting. I would love if there were more pockets around Littleton that felt comfortable sending us ideas, knowing that we'll give them a fair discussion and potentially circulate it to the appropriate. Cool. If any, I mean, I started a spreadsheet, I'll share it with you all, where we can just try to keep track of some of this stuff, and again, have names and email addresses and stuff tracked down. I think again, to not create homework for everybody, I think if there are groups you're excited about, make that part of your report. And if council saying, hey, I'm trying to establish contact with this group or something, and maybe we can just make that a standing procedural item when we're talking about like taking on these new core ideas, to just at least see if there are any groups like you think it'd be good to make a dedicated board for outreach to. I just think about how cool it'd be in like a year to 2 years time to have like 10 groups, or just like people that we could actually be like, oh, the source is there.
The LPS superintendent was gonna be at a transportation meeting in November.
Yeah. That could be a good FaceTime, so.
That's November 20th, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody want to know? That spreadsheet, the city of Littleton's Office 365, we can have a online version of Excel where we can all work on it together and add other groups that we might know of independently.
Yes.
So it's not just spammed version 25 of the same document.
SharePoint. Good, we did get some insight of, well, I think it is, correct me if I'm wrong, for future stuff, so I don't have to send out a copy that everyone, sorry, copy. I think we can figure out collaborative sharing on these things, but there is the open meeting laws and regulations where you need to not be working on there as a whole group outside of structured meeting time, so.
That's generally the guidance that we're getting from the city clerk and from the state of Colorado. I might hazard a guess that if the nature of the document were simply like collecting information and not a forum for discussion, that might be a material difference that would make it okay. But I would want to confirm with the city clerk before we jump off the diving board.
Cool, that's a good follow-up item, but yeah, I think in the spreadsheet there, though, that's pretty easy and would be nice. Nice way to collaborate on that and store that information together.
I have a question on
Yes.
specifics. It's essentially like you go into a document, say two people. Yeah, thing, is that, or is there any more like structure that needs to happen prior?
That's the clarification that we would seek from the city clerk.
Okay.
We certainly would want it to stand in the way of the board coordinating its efforts. We just want to stay on the right side of Colorado open meetings law. Because without tools like that, you're still left in a position where a lot of that nitty gritty business has to be conducted in this meeting, which is not an optimal use of the board's time. So I think we want to work with the clerk to find the right balance.
So the clerk actually did reach out, because Bobby, Ricky did bring that up earlier for when you guys were preparing this recommendation. So this is what the clerk said. She said the best way to allow this would be for you as the board liaison to create a document in OneDrive and give each member access to edit and comment on it. That document with comments can then be made part of board packet for conversation. There should be strict instruction that while they can each edit and add comments, they should not directly respond to each other's comments. This can create an ad hoc meeting. Rather, leave comments and then discuss them during the public meeting. That is your first instruction.
There you have it.
Yeah. Okay. That's great, I mean. Yeah.
So nuts and bolts, you could create a document for us, Chris, and then take your list and just copy and paste it, and we can all add it and not respond to each other.
I think we'd be needing to do a lot of commenting on the
Yeah.
documentation spreadsheets. I think that works great. And that will make collaborating on future documents, letters to council, things like that, obviously a bit easier than we went through today too, so.
I also have one more point for clarification, sorry. It's this guy. So if there's something that, maybe like 4 of us agree with, and we're not responding to each other's comment, but we're all putting the same thing, like, oh, I agree with this, like, is that also something that would then be considered? Sorry, I know that's like a
Oh,
very,
you're really trying to find that gray line, aren't you?
I just don't wanna be on the wrong side of things I should be doing, so,
I mean, I'm sure you could text an individual directly and say something that.
It's a great point. You could always email that individual person if you saw some comment on them or something and say, I'd like to discuss this idea with you further or something like that, because we can have individual correspondence outside of, well, you and I could have talked about this waste diversion letter. If we wanted to. But yeah, maybe just to play it safe, make sure we're on the safer side of that, just not having comment threads on any documents. So you can, if you want to leave a comment to remind yourself to circle back to the meeting, whatever, sure, but like, commenting to other people's comments.
Right, yeah. So the document is an information hub, and then the meeting is where you would have those discussions about agree, disagree, what do we want to change, et cetera.
Okay, we're cruising. It's good. It's summer. Okay. Actually, I think we're like cruising. Next gen contacts, board and other groups. Yeah, I should say, I think the other groups makes a lot of sense. I think we're already establishing some contact with KSB, environmental stewardship. If anyone has interest in arts and culture, that feels like another one. I thought that could be of interest there too. Even if we're just keeping track of their monthly agendas, things like that, and kind of reporting on that when there's relevant stuff popping up, that would be a good thing for us to all try to keep on back in mind. Okay. Anything else to add to September agenda planning? Outside of what we've already discussed about trying to line up project downtown, and it would be great if everyone would get a chance to watch the segment of the study session. I'll clip it and send it out just so it's easy to find in case you don't know where to find it. Once
That's
it
the
happens.
6th of this month, okay.
So we'll have decent bit of time before, over a week before the next meeting to look at that. So we could watch that and kind of discuss and start putting thoughts together, brainstorming our next steps. That'd be really helpful. Try to get project downtown presentation. Anything else on people's minds for September? Obviously, I'm not finalizing it now, so think of it later and I'll make it too.
Are we finalized on the letter?
We're finalized on the letter. I'll circulate a finalized draft for last comments, just to do a quick spelling and other check and stuff on there to see if anybody has anything, but yeah, and then we're gonna have Jeremiah send it off. Joint support. And I believe council's deciding some of those pieces here pretty soon.
For the,
Waste diversion plan.
I think they're, sorry, I've closed the agenda again. But I think, but the study sessions are interesting because they're, staff is essentially looking to see if there's enough agreement amongst the council to move forward with something. And I think the staff felt like there was enough agreement amongst council to move forward. So yeah, I think it will come soon. We have a regional housing assessment coming. I'm sorry, I'm not finding it.
I think I saw it sometime in September, but I'm not seeing it perfectly on there either right now. Either way, yeah, we'll get that sent off here soon. I feel good about it. I mean, I guess I could have asked that to close on that part of the agenda meeting. Does anybody have any further points on that letter? Feel good about it.
Seems pretty good.
Oh, yeah. Waste diversion study is on the October 7th general business.
Okay, perfect. That's great. We'll definitely have that submitted then before our next meeting and stuff, so that'll be all wrapped up. That's a nice quarterly goal.
Yeah, good job, guys.
All right, on that note, I guess we'll move on to individual reports. I just wanted to call out that Western Welcome Week officially starts tomorrow. That's exciting. Go do cool things there for Saturday. And then there's the longer, I don't know if you remember, there's the longer tables Littleton in September. It's a very cool event that's coming downtown that I think is.
Who's putting it on?
Some larger organization, but Donald, who with Young Professionals, is actually the organizer of a part of that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, look into that and try to go. I'll be out of town, which I'm really sad about. It seems really cool.
Where are they doing that?
Where? Downtown, Main Street.
Wow, okay.
Table running from like Melting Pot all the way to
The hell?
there.
Actually, 3 lines of tables.
3? That's insane.
Right, the goal, the moonshot goal was to make a table that's a mile long.
Yeah.
And that stretch of road is a third of a mile roughly, so. 3 tables.
Yeah, I don't think you would get a table going up the hill. That would be, even if you could, it would be unpleasant.
Where are all the tables coming from?
There's a lot of partner organizations involved. There's a lot of in-kind donations. The food's gonna be provided by a coalition of Hispanic and Mexican food restaurants. A lot of volunteer organizations contributing volunteer efforts. some organizations contributing monetarily. And a lot of activity around it, interestingly, not with necessarily one single organization at the center of it. It's the fruit of a lot of collaboration among various nonprofit and community civic orders. Sort of living the time together. The city of Littleton also has a significant stake in it as well. September 24th, in or around Main Street.
Yeah, since I'm sending a link with the TNB survey and other stuff, I'll throw that link in there too, just so it's there. Yeah. It's not about the company. Seems really cool. Right. Snap a place. Yeah, no, I think that's how it's-
That was the one talking point, so I'm glad you teed it up perfectly.
Yeah. Good work.
Yeah.
It's you being a great interim chair today. Yeah, nice. I mean, not really much from me. Congratulations on getting a recommendation created, collaborating with a few people.
Something concrete.
Now, ESB. Thinking about the next quarter, I just had one recommendation. I know unless something else changed when you went to go talk with the VP at that meeting. I know that they're very interested in doing something collaborative. Those of you who weren't here in the June meeting, they sent a representative to come here to have a sort of informal conversation with us during that meeting, and they're very interested, kind of like you. And so if you're thinking about what to prioritize during the next quarter, that's something to consider. Something that impacts the infrastructure or safety front, objectives that tackling is cool. So seeing that the collaborations that you had during this last recommendation went pretty smoothly. Have an interested board, that could be something that you know. For the record, they also did say that they were interested in doing something this fall with you guys. I told them you guys might not be able to do anything until beginning of next year, but it's like you guys have this recommendation done. They're kind of about this. So just some food for thought. That's all I was gonna say on that front. But yeah, I've got some fun options too. Loving downtown. Even though this stuff, you guys to ultimately set that prioritization, but like I said, food for thought.
Can I ask a question about that? Some of the temporary stuff that we've been doing transportation wise with some of the bollards and things in the streets, is there like a timeline that they're trying to like make a decision more permanently about how some of that goes? Cause that could be an impactful way for our board to be involved with that as well.
That's a great question, and if you want to reach out to them and set something up this quarter, next quarter.
Nice.
You can absolutely do that. There you go.
Good deal.
So, yeah.
So there's a bunch of permanent work being done on Euclid Avenue, right in front of Euclid High School. That's kind of the Euclid Middle School. I think in my mind, the test ground for what permanent stuff would look like. So if you have time, take a look at that. But I think there is this trade-off of permanent is super, super expensive. And the temporary stuff can be input. And just from my perspective, it can be put in and replaced multiple times before you can come anywhere near the cost of the permanent stuff. It's just, it's not, I'm not sure it's cost effective. I mean, it's last, you know, even if you have to redo things every couple of years compared to the hundreds of thousands of dollars it costs for.
Do you think it works as well?
I mean, I think I also would say it's clear to me that the staff is learning from the temporary. They absolutely got feedback that too many flags or bollards, you know, the too many things is confusing in that. And so they've reduced the amount of those and are trying to put in things that are lower profile. And it'll be interesting to see if, you know, I've got a complaint. It'll be interesting to see what we learn from what's on Euclid Avenue. The people who live there are really concerned about snow removal. So we need to see if that turns into a problem. If we learn from that. I got a complaint from an old friend about a bike lane being put in front of her house and blocking access for the trailers that they park in their yard. And so I'm interested to see if they keep learning. So But I didn't fully answer your question, but I think, so I don't know if it's more effective or less effective, but I do see them actually learning from it. So I didn't fully answer your question.
They're all pilot projects to test.
Yeah, but, and they are piloting things, but I also just think the permanent stuff is really expensive. And there's like a trade-off of just more places that have, you know, somewhat permanent bike lanes versus a few places that have permanent bike lanes.
I see value and, continuing transportation mobility board is something that piqued my interest, but, yeah, I think we something cool for like in here or early next, have her kind of like run parallel with capability and kind of broader housing.
Yeah. I'm happy to put both or either of you in touch with, kind of the staff liaison there or Jeff, the chair, because I have both of them.
She just got promoted.
Amazing.
So we are talking about this housing assessment in 5 days. And it definitely, I got the presentation yesterday and I'm looking at it now, and I can send it to you if you want. There's some interesting data in there about housing in our area. If you want, so if you have time to watch, I would encourage you to.
Yeah.
And I can send this to, do you want this? Do you want me to send it to you?
Yeah.
Yeah, please. So I'm gonna send it to Chris and he's gonna send it to you, because I don't think it has your email.
Nice. I love the delegations.
No, it's not delegation. I don't know what else, I don't have everybody's.
It's information facilitation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think TMV though, like, I do think collaborating with them is valuable. I think that we put like hearing from them on things like safer streets is great. I think, again, take a look at, I think in that survey, there is a link to the actual transportation master plan. I think that's, if you have the time, take a look at that between your next meeting and we can have that as an agenda item just to circle back to with a month to mull it over and see what comes from some of that, as well as potentially a little update from Michael on safer street stuff about like, if that's something we wanna, a smaller action item could be writing a quick letter to them about some of the aspects of the master plan that we think are particularly interesting or to follow up on.
We're gonna get really good at writing letters.
So and just to be clear, the study session is on housing and safer streets. So I'll send you both the presentations. If I can figure out how to do it.
Study sessions are looking good. Robert, anything else to report?
I've talked too much already. They're big files.
Any other reports from council? No?
No.
Other reports from other?
I'm doing summaries of our meetings on Facebook, and I know you're all on Facebook because that's what the little kids are. But I'm trying to kind of increase people kind of knowing what we're doing. So I can do 90 seconds on Facebook, and I'll create a Instagram account soon and put it on too. It has to be a political account versus my personal account. So I haven't figured out how to do it, but I will.
That's cool. I think that's a great effort.
Yeah, so if you're on Facebook, follow Robert Reichart for Littleton, and then you can see so far it's really my family members making fun of me.
What is Facebook for? No.
True.
Other reports, updates, anything of interest? Yeah, do
Sorry.
come on.
Sorry, I have been chatty today.
That's what it's for. That's what our time is for.
I mean, I kind of think like bouncing off of the idea mentioned, one thing that's definitely been like back in my mind is like how to just like continue to increase engagement, like, and I think, I disagree, we'll agree with social media, I'm a strong disagree camp. You know, it's a way for just people, even if they're not necessarily like coming to the meetings, but also just know that, to your point, like even with the different like board groups, that, hey, this exists, like this is the avenue, this is the venue, these discussions are happening, this impacts you. Probably not something that's like super involved or crazy, but I think like some like, I don't know what the legality of it, but even like milestones like this, where like we're in support of like something that council's gonna then go and discuss. So I just like get that more like awareness out there and potentially like, not just like interested in like what's currently happening, but also just increase the civic engagement, but then also potential for like, when our terms expire, like more people to come and like, you know, apply and like want to be a part, so. Yeah, just random thought, it doesn't have to be super crazy or involved, I'm terrible at social media, so don't ask me, but, it could be a way to increase engagement or get people to know like what's happening.
I mean, at some point, I think it could be worth us talking about how to like scope this out, but like presumably we could ask the city of Littleton account to like post something kind of on our behalf, right, of Next Gen's talking about this thing, Next Gen did this thing, whatever, like just to even, because to get to that point, I think a lot of people who even are fairly engaged with the city might not know about Next Gen specifically. I mean, that's like possible. I wouldn't just want to ask them to randomly say, Next Gen is a board. There you go. Like,
What I would say to that is as a, not speaking from firsthand as a member of the city's communications team, I'd be hesitant to offer that on their behalf because I know they're working through some capacity issues.
Sure.
But I do know that they are, it was constantly in an evaluation mode of what can we be doing better, more effectively as a city organization, which includes the council and boards and commissions, about increasing the public's awareness of what is going on and what business is on the table too. So again, as a partner to them, but speaking sort of out of turn on their behalf, I'd like to think they'd be open to the idea, but they probably have a better sense of what the feasibility is.
Yeah.
Which is my best attempt at a diplomatic sort of answer. Seeing the intent,
Diplomatic.
I think we would be in agreement on the intent. I think it would just be a matter of figuring out what the mechanism is.
Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's an awesome thing for us to like keep in mind. I think I'm happy to add that to the agenda anytime. Anyone has any ideas of like how to put that together, or if we want to try to talk to communications and like all of that process at some point too. So I agree, awareness goes a long way.
With a separate question, you could probably just be like, look at your email, you probably find this. Is there any like law restriction about just kind of doing that like on our own? So like, I don't know, like just in general, is there anything there?
I'm not offhand aware of like a legal prohibition on it. I think any concerns would probably be around how do we effectively coordinate that? Because if we get into, if I put myself in the shoes of the city's communications team and we get into a future where each board and commission has an online presence, we also want to make sure that we have a way to ensure that there's some cohesion of the voice, if that makes sense. That we're approaching it from the same kind of standpoint. I think that would be more of the concern. And the communications team is they're pretty close to the line on their capacity right now with the number of projects and efforts they are currently supporting. So it would be a challenge for them to sort of be that central hub. So again, it's kind of hard to say what the most feasible option to it would be. I don't think as far as I'm aware, it's not a legal concern.
How about like individually, like if like Bobby
Yeah,
decided to go
Post
like,
about Next Gen.
do something on Facebook, I don't know.
I don't
yeah,
think
Facebook.
I think the only concern there is making sure you're speaking in a way that isn't trying to like represent the board.
Gotcha,
But
okay.
you can say, hey, I'm on this board. We meet first Thursdays. Here's our agendas and websites and everything else. I mean, if I had any semblance of a social media presence, I would maybe try to do that.
Yeah,
So
I have absolutely none, so.
I don't think my 40 Instagram followers are gonna get a ton out of that, but maybe I'll give it a rip and see what happens.
Sounds good, okay, thank you, sorry, it's not.
But it's an excellent line of thought, and I think it'd be good for us to have some interface with the communications team to kind of see what guidance they may offer.
Cool. All right. I think that's it. 8:04, adjourn. Call it a day.